Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for July the 14th. Today, we are reading together the last psalm in the second book of the Psalter that spans from Psalm 42 through Psalm 72. And this psalm today is going to be a prayer for the king, the 72nd psalm. We are told in the superscription that this is of Solomon, one of two psalms that are attributed to Solomon, the other one being Psalm number 127. As far as the category that this psalm would fit into, I think it fits very squarely into the kingship and royalty type of psalm. It is again a prayer to God on behalf of the king of Israel. And here Solomon might have in his mind the person who would occupy the seat of the literal throne of Israel, the king, the person who would sit in the same place as his father David and as those who would come after Solomon. But what we're going to recognize is that here within this psalm, all these incredible and amazing and wonderful attributes and characteristics that are prayed for the king are never fully recognized in any of the kings of Israel, but instead only one person can claim to fit this psalm in perfection. We'll talk about who that is, and I'm pretty sure you have a good idea of who I am referring to. But let me get the text up on the screen for us today. Psalm number 72. Psalm 72, a prayer for the king. This is of Solomon. Psalm 72 in verse number 1. God, give your justice to the king and your righteousness to the king's son. He will judge your people with righteousness and your afflicted ones with justice. May the mountains bring well-being to the people, and the hills righteousness. May he vindicate the afflicted among the people. May he help the poor and crush the oppressor. May they fear you while the sun endures, and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May the king be like rain that falls on the cut grass, like spring showers that water the earth. May the righteous flourish in his days, and well-being abound until the moon is no more. May he rule from sea to sea, and from the Euphrates to the end of the earth. May desert tribes kneel before him, and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and the coast and islands bring tribute. The kings of Sheba and Saba offer gifts. Let all kings bow in homage to him. All nations serve him. For he will rescue the poor who cry out, and the afflicted who have no helper. He will have pity on the poor and helpless, and save the lives of the poor. He will redeem them from oppression and violence, for their lives are precious in his sight. May he live long. May gold from Sheba be given to him. May prayer be offered to him continually, and may he be blessed all day long. May there be plenty of grain in the land. May it wave on the tops of the mountains. May its crops be like Lebanon. May people flourish in the cities like the grass of the field. May his name endure forever, as long as the sun shines. May his fame increase. May all nations be blessed by him and call him blessed. Blessed be Yahweh God, the God of Israel, who alone does wonders. Blessed be his glorious name forever. The whole earth is filled with his glory. Amen and amen. And then the psalm finishes out verse 20. The prayers of David, son of Jesse, are concluded. Psalm number 72. Again, a prayer of Solomon for the king. Again, this is a kingship psalm, and this is a royal psalm, and it breaks down pretty nicely into a few pretty solid categories. The first one being verses 1 through 4, where and these categories again just give various descriptions of the king and requests of God concerning the king. The first one being that the king would be a person who practices justice and righteousness. God, give your justice to the king and your righteousness to the king's son. Well, we're talking about kings in general. It doesn't matter whether you're the king or the king's son. The king's son is a prince, so he's going to be the king. So the idea here is that justice and righteousness would be things that are continually passed on from generation to generation of the kings. So let's think for a moment about the history of Israel and the kings. Going back to David, first of all, in 2 Samuel chapter 8 and verse 15, it is said that David ruled in this way with justice and righteousness. Even concerning Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 10 and verse number 9, he ruled with justice and righteousness. And even Josiah in Jeremiah 22 and verses 15 and 16 is said to have ruled with justice and righteousness. Again, these are characteristics of God that ought to be on display within the king. Because again, the king, above all else, was the greatest representation of God. He was to be that person for God, to represent God's character to the people and to set the example for how the people were to be. That's why it was such a big deal whenever the king fell short of such a standard. But this king's justice and righteousness was to extend not just to his people. Everybody expects that. But there's a special emphasis here put on those who are needy, those who are, as is described here, afflicted, those who are, it talks about the afflicted ones in verse number 2, talks about the afflicted ones in verse number 4, talks about the poor among the people in verse number 4 as well. Those who especially need that attention, who don't have the power of their own on their own. These were the people that the king was to give special attention to. But notice as well that justice cuts both ways. It not only upholds those who are righteous, but also punishes those who are wicked. Crush the oppressor is the last line here within this psalm. Crush the oppressor. So judge your people with righteousness, your afflicted ones with justice, vindicate the afflicted, help the poor, but crush the righteous. Crush the righteous. And in doing so, again, he would be reflecting the character of his God. Secondly, in verses 5 through 7, we see a king who, again, building on this theme of righteousness, is a righteous ruler. And in doing so, he is a blessing to his people. May they fear you, referring to the king, while the sun endures as long as the moon, and as long as the moon throughout all generations. So this is a continual thing that Solomon is praying for, that this continue to be the case for the kings of Israel. May the king be like rain that falls on cut grass, like spring showers that water the earth. May the righteous flourish in his days, and well-being abounds. May well-being abound until the moon is no more. All this language that is seen here within this section of the psalm is about blessing, that through his justice and righteousness, this will help the nation as a whole. I love this language, the metaphor, the imagery that is given about rain falling on cut grass, spring showers that water the earth, and it talks specifically righteous flourish and well-being abound. Righteous flourish and well-being abound. Is this not what God desires for his people, those who he loved, that they flourish and that they abound? Yes. Again, this is about God yet. These characteristics are true of God, but these are supposed to be true of the king as well. So Solomon recognizes that and prays that this would be a reality for God's king. Third section, verses 8 through 11. Solomon prays that this is a king who is able to garner a universal reign. May he rule from sea to sea, from the Euphrates to the ends of the earth. So Solomon here is looking to God's king and recognizing that God, again, is such a great blessing giver. He is one that helps his people to abound so much that he's praying for this king to have reign over all the lands, even desert tribes kneeling before him, enemies licking his dust, kings of Tarshish, kings of Sheba and Saba give him gifts. All kings, notice this, all kings bow down in homage to him, the one king. All kings bow down in homage to him, the one king. This is a language of universal reign. And again, if this king is God's representative, then that would be, I think, a natural expectation for him to reign just as God does. 8 through 11. Verses 12 through 14. Again, building on, there's some overlap here in some of these sections, and maybe at this point, this is the summarization of the previous sections, because I think within this section we see, or excuse me, there's one more after this, but this one does kind of put together the previous three sections, where I think right here it talks about how he is a reflection of God's character, building off what we saw in the first section, that he has a major concern for others. Notice the verbs here, the verbs. Verse number 12, rescue. Verse number 13, have pity. Verse number 13 again, save. Verse number 14, redeem. Rescue, have pity, save, and redeem. These are all actions of compassion that someone would have upon another. And notice who the objects of these verbs are: the poor, the afflicted who have no helper. Again, the poor and the helpless, the lives of the poor, those who are suffering oppression and violence. These are all people who are described as being precious in his sight. Precious in his sight. I mean, if you were just reading this psalm, if you took out the king language and the main subject of this psalm was not mentioned, it was very vague, and somebody asked you, who is this talking about? I don't think any of us would have any doubt that this is talking about God. We would say, oh, these are all attributes that apply to God. But notice that Solomon here is praying that these things be applied to God's king over his people, that he will rescue the poor and the afflicted. He'll have pity on the poor and the helpless. He will save the lives of the poor, that he will redeem them from oppression and violence. This king, just like Yahweh, is to have major concern for others. And that's just not true about most kings, is it? Most kings, most top of the mountain rulers, top of the hierarchy, they're just concerned for themselves. They've gotten to where they want to where they want to be, and they're going to use their power to bless themselves and not bless others. But that's not to be true about Israel's king. Israel's king is to reflect God's character and to be a blessing for others. And in doing all this, verses 15 through 17, Solomon prays that this then, if the king will uphold this standard, and if the king will live according to this way, then may he live long. May gold be given to him. May prayers be offered for him. May he be blessed. May there be plenty of grain. May people flourish in the cities. May his name endure forever. May his fame increase. May the nations be blessed by him. This is a king who Solomon prays will have unrivaled prosperity. Unrivaled prosperity. One section that stood out to me, or one verse, was verse number 16. May there be plenty of grain in the lands. May it wave on the tops of the mountains. May its crops be like Lebanon. May people flourish in the cities like the grass on the field. May there be plenty of grain in the land. May it wave on the tops of the mountains. What's the issue with that? Or why does that stand out to me? Well, it stands out to me is that's mountains, the top of mountains is not where grain grows. And yet there's going to be such prosperity within the land that it'll even grow in this type of place. Even in this type of place, it would grow. So why did that stand out to me? Well, Tennessee guy. What's our song? Our song's Rocky Top. What's in the song Rocky Top? Corn don't grow at all on Rocky Top. Dirt's too rocky by far. Well, that's not true of this king's rule. This king will be so prosperous and so blessed, and it's because of the fulfillment of these first 1, 2, 3, 4, because these first 4 sections, it's because of these first 4 sections that this would be true, that he would be blessed and prosperous in this way. What an incredible king. What an incredible king this would be. What an incredible blessing to be a part of a people that is ruled by a king like this. So we end then with the doxology in verses 18 and 19. Blessed be Yahweh God, the God of Israel, who alone does wonders. Blessed be his glorious name forever. The whole earth is filled with his glory. Amen and amen. God, in blessing his people with this type of king, is the one who truly deserves all the honor and glory. And we're told that the prayers of David, the son of Jesse, are concluded. Now, I want us to think about this for a second. Think about this for a second. Who among Israel, who among the kings of Israel fit this bill? there are some instances where a king might be, again, like we saw earlier, of David, Solomon, Josiah, they are said to have ruled with justice and righteousness. During various reigns of various kings, their people were abundantly blessed in many ways. During various kings, the spans of their land they ruled grew to places it had never been before. Again, their care and compassion for the people is seen throughout the text, and again, prosperity was there too. But there's no one king who fits the bill of this description perfectly, especially whenever it comes to reigning from sea to sea. That never happens. So does that mean that Solomon's prayer was left unanswered? Did God not respond well to Solomon's prayer here? Let me suggest to you that he did. And he answered this prayer through Jesus. That Jesus is the one who rules with perfect justice and righteousness. He is so righteous that he blesses people abundantly. He is a king of universal reign over the whole world. He, above all else, has rescued the poor and the afflicted, had pity on the helpless, has saved the lives of the poor, and redeemed people from oppression and violence. He has brought unparalleled prosperity to his people and to all nations. All nations call him blessed. So we should be thankful and think about, as we read this psalm, that it really is referring to Jesus. And even more so, I want us to think about the New Testament imagery that is given to us about how we reign with Jesus. And what a blessing it is to know that we get to participate in his wonderful reign as the great king that Solomon prays for here within Psalm number 72. What a blessing. What a blessing to be able to serve under King Jesus and to be served in so many ways by him, to be blessed by him in so many ways, and to enjoy such great prosperity as a servant of this great king. Appreciate you tuning in for this reading today on this Friday. Hope that you have a great rest of your Friday, and looking forward to being back with everybody on Sunday as we continue our study through the Gospel of Mark. Very much looking forward to that, and of course, getting ready for our special series of studies with Wilson Adams that will begin the following Sunday, June 23rd. Again, thanks for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your Friday. May God bless you in all that you do. Hope to see you on Sunday as we gather to study and worship together, and hope you'll be back again on Monday as we read together, beginning in book number 3, Psalms 73 through 78. God's ways are vindicated. This gets us into a series of Psalms of Asaph. Looking forward to reading that with you then. Take care, and God bless.